Welcome to Election Night in America 2021. I'm Leland Vittert in Washington. It is 7 p.m. Eastern, and the polls have closed in Virginia, where the governor's race will define politics in America for the next year. Democrat Terry McAuliffe and Republican businessman Glenn Youngkin are locked in a dead heat, which in and of itself is shocking. President Biden won Virginia by 10 points last year. Youngkin seized on anger in the wealthy suburbs of Washington and Richmond over critical race theory, mask mandates in schools, and transgender bathrooms to turn education into this election's #1 issue. A Youngkin win tonight would be the biggest political surprise since 2016 and President Trump's improbable victory. It would also pave a new path for Republicans who keep Donald Trump at arm's length, as Youngkin has. A McAuliffe win, by no matter how thin a margin, will embolden progressives to push even farther left and give new life to President Biden's political agenda. Live pictures right now of McAuliffe headquarters as well as Youngkin headquarters. You can see folks are just filing in. They are both prepared for a long night. Early on, it's going to come down to the early vote, those who voted up until Sunday, and we can expect that data in the next half hour. Pollster Kristen Soltis Anderson standing by with the most important data, as well as what counties we need to look at first. But we start with NewsNation's Kellie Meyer inside McAuliffe's headquarters. All right, music's up. Is that real energy, or is it just loud there, Kellie?
Right now, it's just the music that's up. We're waiting for some porters to come in here in Tysons, Virginia, where we are waiting for Terry McAuliffe here at his election night headquarters. The McAuliffe campaign tells me they're feeling good about the areas they need to win over so far. They are looking at these Democratic strongholds in cities across Virginia. But what we're seeing, it's high turnout not only in these urban areas, but the rural and suburban areas. And it's in those parts of the state where we saw that momentum for Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin when we were on the trail with him, seeing that surge in support in these smaller areas in the days leading up to Election Day. But McAuliffe has tried to bring out some big names to gain support. He brought out President Joe Biden last week. He brought out Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Obama, trying to gain this support. But this race, incredibly close, like you mentioned, in a place that President Joe Biden won just this time last year. You know, people saying that this race was going to be close, but I don't think the campaign here thought it would be just this close. Leland.
Seems like both sides are really surprised by how close it is. Kellie, we're going to come back to you as news warrants. Thank you. We welcome in Kristen Soltis Anderson, friend of the show, columnist at the Washington Examiner, pollster at Echelon Insights. Reasonable people can agree you'd a lot rather be Glenn Youngkin right now than Terry McAuliffe. The McAuliffe campaign, as Kellie was reporting, is spinning the turnout numbers, saying big turnout in Democratic areas is good for us. All right, fair spin?
Somewhat. So as you mentioned, this is a state that went for Biden by 10 points. So the closer turnout looks to the 2020 election, the better news you would think it is for Democrats. But that assumes that everyone who voted for Biden is also voting for Terry McAuliffe. And that seems to be what the McAuliffe campaign is saying. Their internal polls show that there's very close alignment between the Biden camp and their voters and the McAuliffe team. But the Youngkin team thinks that they're getting a lot of spillover. Folks that maybe they weren't as interested in voting for Donald Trump. They maybe cast a ballot for Biden. But for them, issues like what's happening in their local schools and what's happening with the economy are overriding normal partisan concerns. And they might be available to Youngkin and a part of a potential victory for him.
You and I talked. I've been covering politics for a long time. You've been polling politics for a long time. Cannot think of a statewide race where education was the #1 issue. Now, education's obviously become a proxy for so many other things, critical race theory, transgender bathrooms, and the like. But you think about two of the big swing counties, not really swing counties, but suburban counties where that matters, Loudoun County and Henrico County, both suburbs, one of Richmond, one of Washington, D.C., both places that President Biden won by 30 points. Does Youngkin need to win those or just get closer?
So Youngkin just needs to get closer. Now, these are the sorts of counties that tend to pick winners. If you look at Henrico County, you know, last night on your show, you had Mike Allen from Axios give a great analysis of Loudoun. I went home and wanted to see, well, what county actually does a better job of predicting winners in Virginia? And it's Henrico in the Richmond suburbs. But here's the deal. Youngkin doesn't actually need to take this Biden 2-to-1 margin type county and make it red. He just needs to hold it a little bit closer. He could break Henrico County's winning streak if he wins tonight.
All right, Kristen Soltis Anderson, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're going to keep that map up and talk about it for just a minute here. Kristen, thank you very much. Youngkin worked a tightrope during this campaign. He made an effort, really, to distance himself from former President Trump without isolating the MAGA base in Virginia. That's key in those suburban counties, because Loudoun County, Henrico County, Charlottesville, and especially down in Chesapeake and Virginia Beach around Norfolk, President Trump is not that popular. And that's why, of course, Terry McAuliffe tried very hard to link Youngkin and President Trump. What does the future of the Republican Party look like without President Trump right now in it, if, of course, Glenn Youngkin wins? We bring in Tennessee Congressman Mark Green. Get to the Trump question in just a minute. What does Virginia tell us nationally for Republicans?
Very clearly, if there's a huge win or a win of any kind for Youngkin, this will demoralize the Democrat donor base, and it will make it much easier and less expensive for us to take the House.
Are there races that right now Republicans are thinking about for 2022 that they weren't thinking about, say, 2 months ago?
I don't think so. We targeted 57 Democrat seats, and I'm not sure that we've, widened the angle of view, if you will.
Okay, so has it changed the issue set from talking about taxes and foreign policy to education? Okay.
Leland, absolutely. The education thing is now a national discussion, and it's been made so by what happened in those counties, Loudoun County especially, and it's now a national talking point.
As you go to Tennessee and others, same thing.
100%. The critical race theory is an issue in Tennessee, absent the transgender issue. The critical race theory, Tennessee made it against the law to basically teach it in Tennessee.
What are we to take from the fact that Glenn Youngkin has been able to keep President Trump at arm's length while still embracing and getting the support of MAGA voters?
I think you just run your own race. Youngkin, hopefully soon to be Governor Youngkin, is running his race. I'll run my race. We'll all run each individual race. And you do that based on the state that you're in. So I'm not sure that this is the perfect template for every state going forward.
What if Terry McAuliffe wins? You expect Democrats to do what?
If Terry McAuliffe wins, they're just going to double down on what they're currently doing. Even if it's a very small victory for them, they're basically going to say it was an enormous victory. You may have heard Joe Biden from Europe today talking about, well, we expected it to be a close race. That's not true. This was expected to be a landslide for McAuliffe, but they're already starting the spin.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say no one, at least that I talked to 2 months ago when you and I talked and others talked, expected this to be a close race. Nobody was talking about it. Now we suddenly are. Congressman, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us. Yeah. Obviously, there'll be a lot to dissect later. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good to see you. All right, on the Democratic side, as we've talked about, Terry McAuliffe did everything he possibly could do to make this election a referendum on former President Trump. Tonight, we're going to find out if that is still a working playbook for Democrats. And we're going to take a listen to one of McAuliffe's closing arguments. Closing argument number 2.
It's all the Trump stuff. Trump dog whistles from day one. And I'm sick and tired of him pitting parents against parents, parents against teachers, parents against school boards, and using our students as political pawns. I am sick and tired of it.
All right. Is Donald Trump still the best thing Democrats have?
Donald Trump was a major problem for this nation, and Donald Trump is yesterday. The question is about tomorrow. Where are we going to go tomorrow? And we're working on that right now with the major infrastructure bill and also with the Build Back Better, which deals with families. How can we support families? That's where tomorrow is.
No question that's where tomorrow is. But that's not what we necessarily heard from Terry McAuliffe over the past 2 months. Even CNN and MSNBC were making fun of him for how many times he said Donald Trump in an interview.
Well, we'll see how that turns out tonight. That was a big issue in California with the recall election, and Newsom ran that hard.
And it worked.
It did. It worked very well. But there were other things that were going on in addition to that message, and that is also what's going on here in Virginia. Yes, no doubt about it. McAuliffe is talking about Trump a lot, but also he's talking about how to build the economy, how to support families, how to build the infrastructure. Those are also a very big part of his total message.
As you look at the map in Virginia, as we talked about, certainly the momentum is with Glenn Youngkin and the math is with Terry McAuliffe. Is there something Democrats need to learn from the anger that Youngkin was able to capture over the issue, broadly speaking, of education in the suburbs?
Well, certainly he ran on that social issue. McAuliffe probably made a couple of mistakes the way he put that forward, but let's take a look at what the Democrats have actually done. In the Build Back Better legislation, major money for families. Pre-K education, major money for community colleges, and on and on. Also in the rescue plan. So what we're really talking about, is it talk or is it action? The Democrats have really put the action together, and I suspect this week we're going to see the major legislation, the major infrastructure legislation, which does have education in it, as well as the Build Back Better. That's real education. It's not talk.
I'm glad you brought that up in terms of whether or not anything's going to pass, because you and I have talked a couple of times and we've said this is the week it's going to happen. It didn't happen, and Joe Manchin poured more cold water on it. Take a listen.
For the sake of the country, I urge the House to vote and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Holding this bill hostage is not going to work in getting my support for the reconciliation bill, and their position doesn't seem to change unless we agree to everything. Enough is enough.
Mr. President, what's your message to progressives?
That doesn't sound like things are going to get done this week.
I think things will get done this week. We're talking about a serious negotiator, a very experienced negotiator. Manchin had a set of things that he wanted to see out of the bill, and he wants to see in the bill. And what you heard there is the final effort for Manchin to structure the bill in a way that he wants, and he's going to be successful. He's going to be successful at finally putting this bill together. We're seeing the same thing on the other side with Jayapal and others. We're down to the wire here. We're at the last two pieces. A major breakthrough today, a major breakthrough on drug pricing. We're going to actually be able, as a government, to negotiate drug prices. Farmers not happy about what we've managed to do here, but that's not who we want happy. We want those seniors that have to have those prices.
I hear that. What's interesting, in maybe we can tie this both together.
Sure.
I was interviewed Terry McAuliffe 2 days ago, and he said hopefully we can see a bill passed today. He was hoping that some kind of action here would inspire Democrats and independents in Virginia that things can happen. Is there a chance that Democrats in the House have bit off too much?
No.
No.
We've done a terrific piece of work. Go back to the American Rescue Plan. Absolutely essential. That rescue plan kept businesses operating, gave money so people could actually stay alive with their jobs. So all of those pieces were there, and it was able to dampen, not end the pandemic because of the Delta variant, but that really worked. That was step one. That was just 2 months after the new president came in. We then took up the the Build Back Better, the infrastructure piece. We got that together, bipartisan in the Senate. It will pass the House in a bipartisan vote. And then the Build Back Better, the reconciliation piece. We're talking about a major effort to sustain American families, to provide what they need so that the mother or the father can go back to work, with the early childhood education. All of those things are in it.
All right. Congressman, it's great to see you as always. We appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
We look forward to it.
Good to see you. All right. President Biden could be coming home to a major loss or a big win in Virginia. And President Biden really put his shoulder into this. He's on Air Force One heading home after a long trip overseas, watching the results come in. What a loss or win in Virginia will mean for President Biden's political future when we come back. Welcome back to Washington. The polls have now been closed in Virginia for about 18 minutes, and we're getting some of our first numbers, primarily from rural parts of Virginia. We'll put those up on the screen as Glenn Youngkin is in the lead with less than 1% of the precincts reporting there. 10,525 votes to McAuliffe's 4,382. Pretty much meaningless right now with less than 1% in, mostly from rural Virginia. We know that because as we go county by county in the results, we see it ticking up by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points 7 votes, we should say. So very, very early numbers. We're going to get the big dump of data from the suburban counties around Washington, D.C., probably sometime in the next 10 or 15 minutes. That's going to be the early vote data that will tell us so much about where the Virginia governor's race is going. We're also following a number of key races across the country. We'll take you to New Jersey. The New Jersey's governor's race is where Democrat Phil Murphy is seeking a second term. It's closer, perhaps, than Murphy would like, but not quite a national race. We're going to watch it when the polls close at the top of the hour. Back to that as news warrants. We're also watching 14 mayor's races around the country where defund the police candidates are having a hard time against law and order Democrats. And in Minneapolis, they are voting right there to eliminate the police department. That's where we find NewsNation's Kelsey Kernstine, who's been talking to a number of Minneapolis residents, some who like the idea, others who are not so happy about it. Hi, Kelsey.
Hi, Leland. I can tell you this, that several people that I've spoken to today, they are in favor of this referendum. In fact, all the people that I've spoken to today in favor of it. Now, this right behind me is a polling location. They've seen 1,000 people come through today. That is a fascinating number. Now, this is a historical turnout. That is according to the city clerk. Basically, the city clerk saying at 12 noon today, they saw a 140% increase. This is just one of 120, more than 120 locations, 1,000 people coming through here. So this is a big turnout. Minnesotans vote. That is what the city clerk's saying. He also said this is a controversial issue, and that's why so many people are coming out to vote. Now, yesterday, we spoke to a man who said, look, if you get rid of the police or replace the police department, he said that this will become the wild, wild west here in Minneapolis. Critics saying this could be a criminal roulette here. Now, we are going to be following, there's still another 2 hours. We'll be following these polls and watching what will happen, and we'll either update you online or on air. Leland.
Yeah. Some would argue Minneapolis has become the Wild West. We know there are places in the city that you couldn't go live last night or tonight, especially around the George Floyd Memorial. Kelsey, back to you.
True.
Once the polls close in Minneapolis. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. All right, now on to what President Biden had to say a little earlier on his trip home.
Or not I am doing well or poorly, whether or not I've got my agenda passed or not, is going to have any real impact on winning or losing.
All right, that was President Biden in Scotland a few hours ago on a foreign trip, and then he was asked about the Virginia governor's race and how his poll numbers have affected the Virginia governor's race. Because Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, said they weren't helping him. Right now, President Biden's heading home, conceivably watching the results on Air Force One or perhaps having a glass of wine and a nice dinner. He does leave the weekend without any major wins from that climate conference. Of whatever happens in Virginia is going to have a major effect on President Biden's agenda in his political capital for the next year, maybe even the next 3 years. Two friends from the Hills join us. Bob Cusak, editor-in-chief, Niall Stanage, White House columnist. Gents, good to see you. We appreciate it. Niall, are you surprised by how much President Biden dived in and aligned himself with Terry McAuliffe's fate?
I was very surprised about how emphatic he was that McAuliffe was going to win. He said that straight out. That's a little bit of a hostage to political fortune, given that we think Glenn Youngkin is at the very least in with a fighting chance. The president did back away from that slightly later in his remarks, but it was just surprising to me that he said something so stark about a race that is in such doubt.
Bob, does he know something we don't? Sometimes presidents do.
No, I think it could be wishful thinking. I mean, I live in Northern Virginia. You see a lot of Youngkin signs. Youngkin has the momentum. You never know in politics, just like sports. But overall, this is a perfect storm for Youngkin in a good way. And should Youngkin win, this is a political earthquake for Democrats on Capitol Hill.
It was interesting, Niall, you listened to the conversation we had with John Garamendi, who seemed to sort of say, oh, no, it'll be business as usual. If Youngkin wins, it doesn't really mean much. Again, is that wishful thinking?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that if Glenn Youngkin wins this race tonight, that is a rebuke to President Biden and the White House for a start. But it also, to Bob's point, can have cascading effects on the political agenda in the building behind us. Makes moderate Democrats much more nervous, makes it harder for President Biden to corral those members around his agenda. There are big, big impacts if Youngkin wins this.
Yeah, well, certainly if all of a sudden you've got a Democrat losing in a Biden plus 10 state, every Democratic congressman who's in a plus 10 district goes, oh boy, I'm now vulnerable. We put up the map that we've been talking about, and these are the key counties to watch. A number of them that President Biden won, some that he won by double digits, key counties in Virginia. How much are we to believe that the big numbers that President Biden put up were because he was running against President Trump? How much are we to believe that those are counties that are actually, Bob, that blue?
Well, no, I think you have to watch these suburban counties. Loudoun County is the one we're watching. That's one that Biden won big. Hillary won it not as big as Biden. If Youngkin's able to come into Loudoun County, where a lot of people, a lot of big names like Mike Pence campaigned for him, if he's able to lose that county by 8, 7 points, Youngkin's going to win this. So that's the real problem for Democrats, is that the suburbs, which moved to them in the last election, seem to have moved away.
Now, you cover the White House, obviously, and talk to a lot of folks there. Is the White House preparing the contingency plan, and if so, what is it, for losing?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure they have a contingency plan as such. We did see the president today talk a little bit about, well, if McAuliffe loses, it's not because my agenda, that the two things are separate. I don't think they are that separate at all.
Yeah,
you know?
He said it. I'm not sure he believes it.
Right, exactly, and I'm not sure that it is a credible argument to make. Now, the White House will obviously hope that the legislation they're trying to pass will get passed anyway, but it is a very big blow to them if Youngkin wins.
Bob, what are you hearing from GOP sources in general? Are they now rewriting a playbook for 2022 based on Glenn Youngkin's path?
I think so. I mean, Youngkin is a very good candidate, win or lose. I mean, he is very
especially
strong
for a first-timer.
Yeah, exactly.
And how he has navigated the Donald Trump issue is magician-like.
Yes, exactly. And Republicans on Capitol Hill, obviously, they are now favored to win the House, just from a history standpoint. The Senate's going to be tougher, but it's a toss-up. Republicans have to defend a lot of seats. But they've got to look at someone like Youngkin, who towed the Trump line, but also didn't upset the base. And listen, if Youngkin wins this race, maybe not 2024, but he's got to be in the discussion for the White House.
You know, it's funny. You're the second person I've heard say in the discussion for the White House. The first one was me at lunch today. And everybody looks at you like you're crazy. You think if he can win the Biden plus 10 state, people have got to start paying attention. And you listen to this is the third part of Youngkin's final pitch for voters. Take a listen.
This stopped being a campaign a long time ago. This is a movement led by Virginians. On one side of the ballot is Terry McAuliffe, who believes that big government should tell you that you have to join a union. On one side is Terry McAuliffe, who says your employer should fire you if you choose not to get the vaccine.
He almost sounds, Niall, like a conservative Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. This is a movement. That you don't normally hear that from Republicans.
Right, and I think that is something that has been really conspicuous in the closing weeks of this race. The momentum that Glenn Youngkin has picked up has really made this transcend the normal parameters of a governor's race in an off year. And I think there is a big issue, not just about education itself, but there's a broader thing out there about a kind of culturally left-wing movement and the reaction to it. And I think Glenn Youngkin has really tapped into a degree of discontent among people in some of the suburban counties that Bob was mentioning, with that sort of sense of left-wing cultural change.
We talked about left-wing cultural change. Perhaps nowhere has that been more apparent in America than in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And we put that up. Fairfax County is a place that, well, we had the map up for a second, but Fairfax County, which is just on the other side of the Potomac River, huge amount of government workforce, very wealthy county, and Biden won it by 40 points. Biden got 68% of the vote or so there, and we understand that they are not going to meet their deadline for providing early vote data, the 7:30. We want to have the first dump of numbers. Bob, do we read anything into that?
I'm not sure. I mean, the one thing I think when looking at that map is that Trump is not president anymore. McAuliffe has talked about Trump a lot. I mean, a lot. And he's not president. He's not on social media. He's been banned by Twitter. I don't think that strategy works. And I talked to some Democrats, and they're kind of baffled that McAuliffe started to bring in Washington types like Biden into Virginia and nationalize the race, when nationally it's not going so well. And education, which is both a national and local issue, does favor Youngkin now because he's seized on it.
Yeah, I just want to get your guys' thoughts on this. We're going to figure out which county just dumped a bunch of votes in right now. The race is certainly tightening up here. A lot of red counties. We just got some early voting data from Prince William County. McAuliffe up there, it's only a couple of thousand votes, so that doesn't matter. Loudoun County, actually, we just got some big numbers in. This may be interesting to you guys. In Loudoun County, McAuliffe is ahead, but only by about 10 points. That's certainly not the 20-plus points that President Biden won by.
Yes, that's a very good sign for Youngkin. That if it's around 10 or 12, maybe gets down single digits. I mean, then
and that's
it's
the early
over.
vote data. Youngkin can see
and there's a lot more to go, but that's a very early good sign for Youngkin.
All right. Hey, gentlemen, great to see you. Bob, as always, good to have you in person. Niall, all right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Obviously, we're going to keep watching Loudoun County and then down near Richmond. The polls have been closed for about 30 minutes in Virginia. The key data we are going to get in just the next couple of minutes is the early vote data. We're going to go county by county and tell you what to watch for to figure out whether this is going to be a long night or a short night, as the political future of the next year hangs in the balance.
We're going to win. I think we're going to win in Virginia. And you know, you're reporting it being close. The race is very close. It's about who shows up, who turns out.
President Biden is right about that. It's all about the turnout. Whether Terry McAuliffe is going to win, that's up to the voters. In the words of Vince Lombardi, that's why we play the game. We'll be able to tell a huge amount from the early vote and absentee vote in a couple of key counties. Scott Tranter, co-founder of Optimus and president of Decision Desk HQ, joining us now. Took a break from the numbers to join us. Is this going to be an early night or a long night, Scott?
You know what? It's even too early to tell for that. We have it looks like about 8% of the total projected vote in. The early vote's been trickling in, mostly in Southwest Virginia. We're getting a little bit up in the Northern Virginia counties. Right now, it looks good for Youngkin, but it's still too early to tell.
We just got a new dump of data. We want to put that up on the screen right now. Youngkin, 235,000. Terry McAuliffe, 188,000. It's 55-44. What was most interesting to us is we got a dump of data in Loudoun County, one of the key counties to watch. And right now, McAuliffe is up there by about, only 7 points with... looks about half of the precinct, half of the vote in. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, McAuliffe needed to win Loudoun by at least 7 and much closer to 9 or 10 in that early vote dump. I'd have to look and see what the total vote count is, but it looks like a good early number for Youngkin out of Loudoun.
Yeah, we'll put up the map of the key counties that we're looking at. Loudoun County, Prince George's County, down near Charlottesville, the suburbs of Richmond, and then down in Norfolk as well. Loudoun County, Terry McAuliffe, 57,269 votes. Glenn Youngkin, 49,263, 7%. Separating them. Some of the very early numbers down Norfolk for Virginia Beach aren't enough to tell. What's the holdup right now? Are we to believe that that's because there was just so much early vote or something else?
A little bit of that, especially the D.C. suburb counties. What they're doing is they're counting them at precinct locations. They're pre-counting, pre-tallying, and then they have to drive them through D.C. traffic, D.C. Northern Virginia traffic to drop them off at county locations, and then they're tabulated and put up on the website. So that's why we get these rural counties first. These suburban ones take a little bit longer. But a little bit note on that loud number, just doing a little bit of back-of-the-napkin math. We expect Youngkin to win Election Day vote, which will be counted a little bit later in the evening out of Loudoun. And that's a relatively narrow margin. If Youngkin wins Loudoun tonight, which is entirely possible, that'd be a huge shift from what that county did, how that county went for Biden in 2020. And so that's a good early sign for the Youngkin campaign.
Yeah, Biden won that county by almost a 2-to-1 margin. Scott Tranter, I know you got to get back inside of the decision desk. Come back to us as the numbers roll in, all right?
Absolutely.
All right. Team McAuliffe brought in literally a who's who of Democrats to stump for him and get out the vote. Here's McAuliffe describing the list.
We've had great surrogates. I was very proud to have President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, Dave Matthews, Farrell. I'll take my surrogates over Donald Trump any day of the week.
All right, well, Donald Trump was never a surrogate for Glenn Youngkin, but one of the people organizing the surrogates on the Democratic side, Democratic operative Josh Schwerin, now CEO of Saratoga Strategies, joins us from the McAuliffe headquarters. Nice to see you, my friend. Tell me what the mood is there. We've gotten to cautiously optimistic yet?
The mood's good. We're still waiting for folks to really trickle in after hitting the doors up until the polls closed. But turnout's really high. The Youngkin strategy was that Democratic turnout would be low. That clearly hasn't happened. And so people feel good about this. It's going to be a late night and a close race, but people feel really good here.
It's a little hard to hear you, so speak up. I know the noise there is significant. You were famous during the Trump administration for having a tweet at the top of your Twitter feed that said, "Today is a bad day for Donald Trump." And you said it was forever true. But I'm interested in this. If Glenn Youngkin wins, is it a good day or a bad day for Donald Trump from the Democratic perspective?
Well, Donald Trump's not in the White House, so I think it's not a good day for Donald Trump. And the fact is that Glenn Youngkin wouldn't be seen with him, despite the fact that he put Trump in ads in the Republican primary and said that Trump was an inspiration for his run, but then wouldn't be seen with him in person, refused to go to the 2 tele-rallies that Donald Trump did for him. So I think if I were Donald Trump, I would be worried that every Republican candidate is going to be afraid of being seen with Donald Trump in the midterms. And that's pretty scary for someone with an ego the size of his.
Just a little bit more data coming in, more from rural and southwest Virginia, where we expect Youngkin to be ahead right now, 56-44, and we're waiting for some more data from Loudoun County and some of the other spots. Nevertheless, the early vote data from Loudoun County is not the 2-to-1 margin that President Biden won by. Terry McAuliffe's only up a couple of points in Loudoun County. Is it time for Democrats to learn something that running against Donald Trump may not work when Trump isn't on the ballot?
We're like 9 or 10% in, I believe, so I think it's a little early to be taking lessons away from what we didn't know, given that we don't know how the night's going to end. But the fact is that turnout is likely to exceed 3 million votes, which is far higher than 2017, which was a wave election about Donald Trump. So the fact is, Democratic turnout is up, Republican turnout is also up. But the counties around D.C. that have a lot of Democratic votes that haven't reported yet have already exceeded or have exceeded the 2017 vote margins by quite a bit. So we think that the Democratic message worked. All of these big names coming in did work. It woke up Democratic voters, and they showed up tonight.
Kristen Soltis Anderson made the very good point. Will Democrats stay voting Democrat? I know you hope they do. Josh, late night for you. We'll talk to you in the coming days. Thank you. So spin right now from the McAuliffe campaign, where the party might just be getting started. We're going to take a look now at the Glenn Youngkin rally. That's also just on the other side of the river. But for the other side of the aisle, we bring in RNC spokesman Paris Denard. Paris, if Glenn Youngkin wins this, the Republican playbook changes how?
It changes because it shows that a Republican can be competitive in a blue state. It shows that a Republican can have a message that can connect with voters across the political aisle. Issues on education, issues on public safety, and issues on the economy are things that Glenn Youngkin has been strong on, and that can be the playbook going into the midterms.
He is strong, particularly on education. He was talking about that from the very beginning, made it an issue, and then we got Terry McAuliffe. The one thing he did not talk about at all was Donald Trump and kept him at arm's length. If we wake up tomorrow to Governor Youngkin, is Donald Trump no longer the iron grip of the Republican Party?
President Trump is always going to be a major influence in our party. He was a very successful Republican president of the United States, and his agenda, putting America first, is what Glenn Youngkin would be doing, putting Virginians first. That's why his message was connecting, because he didn't make this a national election. He made this about the people of Virginia.
You said that, and it's interesting to pick up on that. We'll take a listen to Glenn Youngkin's second closing argument and then get your reaction. Take a listen.
We as Virginians, we get to stand up and make a defining statement about the future of our Commonwealth. A statement that says that we believe that we will soar, not settle.
4 Republicans looking forward. I know the RNC put out a memo to donors talking about how there were some new places that would be in play. Where, if Glenn Youngkin wins, what kind of districts, what perhaps governor's mansions come into play?
Oh, look, everything is in play, because Glenn Youngkin will show the Republican Party and the nation that you can have this type of a candidate compete everywhere, especially with diverse groups.
Does he have to show, though, that it has to be a candidate who is not as aggressive and as divisive as President Trump was?
It's not about the candidate so much about the message. That's what we're forgetting here. Glenn Youngkin seized upon the moment because Terry McAuliffe attacked parents and said you didn't have a right to be active in your children's education. His message resonates. When you talk about eliminating the grocery tax, and when you have high food inflation right now, single mothers, parents, they look at that. They said, this makes sense. And putting a moratorium on the gas tax, that makes sense.
Paris, thank you very much. We'll see if it's a winning message as we continue to look at the numbers come in. Right now, just 20% of the vote in. Glenn Youngkin with a lead. We still wait for the big counties, the suburban counties of Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia, that will decide this race. A little bit more on the national implications of the Virginia governor's race. What does it mean for America if Glenn Youngkin wins when we come back? Welcome back to Washington, D.C. The eyes of the nation are quite literally on Virginia tonight. How goes Virginia will tell us a lot about the political future of the next few years. We're going to await the results of the high-stakes governor's race. We can look at the leaderboard right now. Glenn Youngkin now with a pretty decisive lead, 120,000 votes, only about 35% of the vote in. The question is, either way, is this a bellwether for next year's midterms? With that, we bring in Sarah Muha, Axios politics reporter. Sarah, we keep hearing from Democrats, oh, we always thought this was going to be close. Maybe in the past week we did. We certainly didn't think this was going to be close anytime in the past 3 months.
No, you're absolutely right. I think, obviously, Biden won Virginia by 10 points. Now, of course, anyone will say that in Virginia, the race tends to go to the person the other way, and you have all of that. Sure. But no, this is definitely closer. Democrats on the Hill, which I cover on a daily basis, they're not happy. Moderates, they're saying we should have passed this. You heard Senator Warner of Virginia say the same thing. He said we should have passed the infrastructure bill in September so that Terry McAuliffe had something to run on.
Yeah, we even talked to McAuliffe on Monday. He goes, I really hope they're going to do something tomorrow, which was election day today, as if it was going to actually make a difference. But how are both Democrats and Republicans you're talking to looking forward on this? If Youngkin wins, things will change. How? If McAuliffe wins, things will change. How?
Sure. Youngkin wins. He's going to provide some sort of playbook for Republicans in the midterm elections, right? This idea of playing on local issues, education, we've seen time and time again. That's been sort of a buzzword in this election. People find it to be really important. You see it as the #2 issue for voters, along with jobs. McAuliffe wins. Democrats are going to be still, even if he wins, Democrats have cause for concern because it is closer than it should be. But they're going to notice that, maybe tying an election to Donald Trump is not the best move. But I want to say, too, we should caution that Virginia voters are a little different than other voters around the area, or the country, rather, because they have the Washington Post as one of their local papers, right? The Washington Post front page every day covers what's going on in Washington. So can we say definitively that the president's infrastructure bill is going to be the thing that Democrats run on in the midterms? We don't really know that because of the Virginia electorate.
How much are we to believe, or I should say, how much are sort of the party strategists believe that the key swing counties in Virginia that we've been talking about all night around Richmond and the suburbs around Washington, D.C., how similar are those to the swing counties around the country that will decide the 2022 midterms and then also decide 2024?
Well, it's a little bit of what I just said, right? So the key counties around here, those swing counties, of course, they are paying attention to national politics. Is your average voter in another state paying as much attention to national politics? Probably not as much from the swing voters that I speak to on a monthly basis. They don't even know that infrastructure is on President Biden's agenda. It's something that he's trying to pass. However,
they would know it if he passed, though. And we think about it right now, just in terms of the results of how different it is running against President Trump versus the way Youngkin ran against Terry McAuliffe. Biden won Loudoun County by a 2-to-1 margin, almost by 40 points. Right now, and this is baked into that total, Terry McAuliffe only leads by about 6 points in Loudoun County. So things are way closer than anybody ever thought. Sarah, stand by. Thank you very much. Sarah Muha of Axios. We saw the latest leaderboards there. We'll be right back here in Washington as we continue to watch the votes roll in. We thought it could be an early night. It's going to go a while. Put another pot of coffee on. Welcome back. Live pictures on the left-hand side of Youngkin headquarters. You can see they've got a little bit bigger crowd than at McAuliffe's headquarters. And if you look at the leaderboard, Youngkin's got a few more votes than McAuliffe does right now. Just about a third of the vote in right now, 600,000 or so for Youngkin, 484 for McAuliffe. Still waiting for the big data dumps, the big amount of early votes from Fairfax County, which is one of the D.C. suburbs, and some of the Richmond counties as well. Bring back in Sarah Muha of Axios, political reporter. You know, it's interesting. Normally, if you're looking at a Republican headquarters, as we are at Youngkin, you would see a bunch of Trump signs. And not only don't you see a Trump sign, Glenn Youngkin, I can promise you, in whatever speech he gives tonight, will not say the word Donald Trump.
Nor has he throughout his campaign, right? That was one of the signature maybe strategies that he is trying out, that Republicans are going to likely try out maybe during the midterms as well, is walk this fine line, this tightrope between Donald Trump voters and non-Donald Trump voters, because he's trying to appeal to those suburban voters who swayed pretty heavily toward Democrats in the midterms in 2020 and then before then as well in 2018.
It's sort of like embracing MAGA voters without embracing MAGA. How much of the MAGA crew that you are talking to, and I know you got sources across the spectrum, will say, gee, we've got to recalibrate. Maybe Donald Trump is no longer the emperor?
I think that their argument is, no, we brought out those MAGA voters for Youngkin, that those people still showed up for him. That's what they're going to say, because they obviously believe in their philosophy.
Yeah, it's interesting because even in a county, we were talking about Washington County, way down by the Tennessee line, it went 75-25 for Trump versus Biden, and now it's going 85-15, still early numbers, for Youngkin. Sarah, great reporting. Obviously, we're going to read everything you have to say based on what happens here. Some fascinating changes about to happen on the American political landscape. Sarah Muha of Axios, thank you. Live pictures we'll leave you with here. Youngkin headquarters at the top. It is going to be a long night with only about 40% of the vote counted. Our coverage continues from New York with Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.